11:45 p.m. The notification light blinked once, cutting through the darkness of my apartment. It was a text from my father, David. Your aesthetic doesn't fit the event. Taylor's fiance, Evan, thinks your presence would be visually jarring. Stay home. I stared at the words. Visually jarring. I wasn't just uninvited, I was being categorized as a design error, a flaw in their perfect visual composition. 2 seconds later, another notification. My sister, Taylor, liked the message. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the phone against the wall. I just set it down on my drafting table, right next to the blueprints of the skyscrapers I design. If I was a structural defect in their image, it was time to remove the support beams. Before we watch them crumble, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I sat in my Eames chair, the leather cool against my back, and looked out at the Seattle skyline. From my 34th floor apartment, the city looked like a circuit board, a grid of logic and light. My apartment was the same, minimalist, precise, intentional. No clutter, no mess. Everything had a purpose. Everything, except the text message still glowing on my phone screen. My pulse didn't even spike. Panic is a structural failure, and I don't build things that collapse under pressure. Instead, I turned to my dual monitor setup, where a CAD drawing of a 70-story mixed-use tower was waiting for my approval. I zoomed in on the foundation layer. That's what I do. I'm a principal architect. I understand load-bearing walls. I understand that if you remove a structural column, the penthouse collapses. My family, however, seemed to have forgotten that I wasn't just the weird sister who liked to draw. I was the foundation. I opened a new window on my screen, my banking portal. It was time to conduct an audit. For years, I had been operating under an invisible contract, a silent agreement that I had drafted in my own head. If I pay enough, if I solve enough problems, if I am useful enough, eventually they will have to love me. I treated their affection like a subscription service I could unlock if I just upgraded my tier. I scrolled through the automated transfers. $4,200. That was the monthly mortgage payment for my parents' lakeside house. A house they insisted on keeping to maintain their status, even though my father hadn't worked a real contract in 5 years. Next line item, $1,500. The lease payment for my mother's luxury SUV. She needed it for appearances, she said. It was vital for her image at the club. Then there were the erratic transfers, the ones labeled emergency. $1,500 here, $2,000 there. Usually for Taylor, the influencer, the socialite, the golden child who needed to maintain a lifestyle that her follower count couldn't actually support. I had categorized these payments as investment in family stability. Looking at them now, in the cold blue light of my monitors, I realized I had mislabeled them. They weren't investments. They were tribute payments. I picked up my architectural scale ruler, tapping it rhythmically against the desk. I had spent my entire adult life designing structures that could withstand earthquakes, high winds, and the weight of thousands of people. I made sure everyone else was safe, warm, and elevated. But in my own family, I was the steel beam hidden behind the drywall essential for the building to stand, but ugly enough that they wanted to cover me up with paint and wallpaper. My father's text made it clear. Visually jarring. I didn't fit the aesthetic. I was the utility room they wanted to keep locked during the open house. But they had made a critical error in their structural analysis. They assumed the foundation would stay in place even after they evicted the engineer. They assumed I would keep holding up the roof while standing outside in the rain. I looked at the total outgoing sum for the last 3 years. It was enough to buy a small island. And in return, I got uninvited from an anniversary party I was paying for. The math was simple. The return on investment was zero. Actually, it was negative. I wasn't building a family legacy. I was subsidizing a delusion. And as any good architect knows, when a project has a fatal structural flaw, you don't patch it, you condemn it. I pulled up the venue contract on my screen. the Waterfront Pavilion. It was one of my professional contacts. I had designed their new wing 2 years ago. Because of that relationship, I had personally guaranteed the catering and venue costs for the gala. $15,000, due 48 hours before the event. The transfer was scheduled for tomorrow morning. My cursor hovered over the cancel transfer button. A small, insidious voice whispered in my ear. The voice of the good daughter. The one who had been trained since childhood to believe that if I just tried harder, if I just gave a little more, maybe this time would be different. Maybe if I paid for the perfect party, they would finally see me. Maybe if I made them look good enough, they would let me be in the picture. It was a seductive lie. It was the invisible chain that had kept me tethered to them for 29 years. I wasn't weak for staying. I was hopeful. I had been buying a ticket to a show that was sold out before I was born. But hope is a dangerous thing when it's invested in people who profit from your pain. I looked at the text message again, visually jarring. That wasn't just a rejection, it was erasure. They didn't just want me gone, they wanted me to not exist so their picture could be perfect. I took a deep breath, the kind you take before you dive into cold water. I didn't slam the mouse, I didn't type a furious email, I just clicked once. The scheduled transfer vanished. Transaction canceled. The words were small, black text on a white screen, but they felt like a shout. I wasn't done. I opened the recurring payments tab. The mortgage, cancel. The car lease, cancel. The emergency fund transfer, cancel. One by one, I turned off the lights in the house of cards I had built for them. Then, I opened my email client. I drafted a message to the venue manager. Dear Marcus, effective immediately, I am withdrawing my financial guarantee for the David and Angela Anniversary Gala. Please invoice the clients directly for all outstanding balances. Best Savannah, send. The silence in my apartment was profound. It was the silence of a demolition site right after the charges have blown, before the dust settles. I sat back, my heart beating a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I had just detonated their reality. They didn't know it yet. They were probably sleeping, dreaming of their perfect party, of their beautiful image, of the accolades they would receive. They had no idea that the foundation had just walked away. The next morning, my phone woke me up. It wasn't an alarm. It was a call from my mother, Angela. It was 7 a.m. She never called before noon. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call, then a text. Savannah, call me immediately. Marcus from the venue just called. He says the payment didn't go through. It must be a glitch. A glitch. That was the extent of their imagination. They couldn't conceive of a world where I would voluntarily stop the flow of resources. To them, I was a utility, like electricity or water. You don't thank the faucet for running. You only get angry when it stops. By 8 a.m., the panic had escalated. My sister Taylor started texting. Seriously? Mom is freaking out. Fix this. I'm trying to finalize the seating chart and she's crying about catering. You're ruining the vibe. I poured my coffee, the dark roast, steaming in the morning light. I didn't reply. Then came the voicemail from my father, David. His voice was tight, controlled, the tone he used when he was disappointed in a subcontractor. Savannah, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, or if this is just incompetence, but you need to fix the glitch immediately. Evan is coming over to see the venue layout later. If we lose the reservation, it will ruin his first impression of the family. Do not embarrass us. Embarrass them. That was always the fear. Not that they would lose their daughter, but that they would lose face. I listened to the message twice. It was fascinating. In a clinical way, they were experiencing a massive cognitive dissonance. They despised me, yet they were entirely dependent on me. To reconcile this, they had to view me as incompetent rather than powerful. If they admitted I had the power to destroy their gala, they would have to admit I was the most important person in their lives. And that was a truth their egos couldn't survive. So I wasn't an adversary. I was just a broken ATM that needed kicking. I sat down at my computer and opened a new email. This one was to my personal assistant at the firm. Block all incoming calls from the following numbers. I listed my parents and Taylor. If anyone shows up at the office without an appointment, security protocol applies. I wasn't hiding. I was working. I had a deadline of my own. My firm, Sterling & Co., was finalizing a massive bid for the city's waterfront revitalization project. The keynote presentation was scheduled for Friday night, the same night as the gala. I had originally planned to skip my own company's biggest night to attend their party, to sit in the back and be quiet. Now, I had a better idea. My phone buzzed again. A text from Evan, Taylor's fiancé. I had never met him, but Taylor had added him to the family group chat weeks ago. Hey, Savannah, hate to bother you, but Taylor is really stressed. Can you just handle the venue thing? It's kind of a bad look. A bad look, I smiled. They had no idea what a bad look really was, but they were about to find out. I didn't block Evan, not yet. He was the only line of communication I left open, because he was the key to the final demolition. Friday night, the night of the gala, I stood backstage at the Seattle Convention Center, dressed in a tailored cream suit that cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage. The air was electric. 600 industry leaders were waiting for the reveal of the waterfront project. My firm was the frontrunner. Meanwhile, across town, at the slightly damp lakeside venue, my parents' anniversary party was underway. I knew this because Evan had been live streaming updates on his Instagram story. Making it work despite the hiccups, he posted panning over a sparse buffet table and dim lighting. The glitch hadn't been fixed. They had scraped together cash for a minimal setup, but the opulence they craved was gone. Then came the text I had been waiting for. Evan to the group chat. Since the DJ canceled, I'm going to hook up my laptop to the projector. Going to show them the firm's new vision video to hype everyone up. Show them what real design looks like. He thought he was showing off his work. He thought he was saving the day. He didn't know that the vision video he had downloaded from the firm's server was actually my keynote address. He didn't know I was the principal. He was a junior associate. He had likely never even seen my face in the company directory because he was too busy trying to impress Taylor. I walked onto the stage at the convention center just as I knew Evan was hitting play at the gala. Good evening, I said into the microphone. My voice was calm, amplified, authoritative. Behind me, a 50-foot screen lit up with my face. At the gala, the same image filled the wall. Savannah Sterling, principal architect and founder. I began my speech. Architecture is about honesty. It's about ensuring the structure matches the facade. According to the later reports from Aunt Sarah, the room at the gala went dead silent. Evan dropped his drink. Taylor stopped mid-laugh. My parents stared at the screen, their mouths open, unable to comprehend what they were seeing. Their embarrassing daughter wasn't just employed. She was the boss. She was the one paying Evan's salary. She was the industry titan they were trying to emulate with cheap streamers and leased cars. I spoke for 20 minutes. I talked about resilience, about building on solid ground, about stripping away the rot to find the strength underneath. Every word was a professional statement, but for my family, it was a personal indictment. They were watching me command a room of billionaires while they sat in the dark, eating cold appetizers I had refused to pay for. The visual contrast was the kill shot. Me, bathed in stage light, powerful and serene. Them, huddled in a rented hall, realized for the first time that they were the small ones. They were the ones who didn't fit the aesthetic. When I finished, the applause in the convention center was deafening. I checked my phone backstage. 17 missed calls from David, 12 from Angela, and 1 text from Evan. Oh my God. I didn't reply. The demolition was proceeding exactly according to schedule. The next morning, I woke up to a different kind of notification. An email from my forensic accountant, Helen. Subject: inquiry results, Sterling family accounts. I had hired Helen a week ago, ostensibly to audit my charitable giving, but really to trace the extra money I had been sending home. The $1,500 a month for my mother's specialized arthritis treatments and my father's heart medication copays. I opened the PDF. The findings were stark, highlighted in red. The money had never gone to a pharmacy or a clinic. Every single transfer had been routed within hours to a secondary account held by Taylor. And from there, online gambling sites, luxury credit card payments, a designer handbag resale platform where she bought, never sold. My parents weren't just using me to maintain their lifestyle, they were actively defrauding me to cover up Taylor's addiction. They were enabling the golden child's rot by harvesting the scapegoat's labor. I stared at the numbers. It wasn't just unfairness anymore. It was theft. My intercom buzzed. Miss Sterling, security here. There are 3 individuals in the lobby demanding to see you. They say they're your parents. I checked the lobby camera feed. There they were. My father, pacing angrily. My mother, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. Taylor, looking pale and erratic, her phone in hand. They were barred by the glass turnstiles, trapped in the fishbowl of my building's entrance. I didn't let them up. I went down. I stepped out of the elevator, dressed in my running clothes, leggings, and a hoodie. I didn't need a power suit today. The power was already mine. As I approached the glass barrier, they rushed forward. "Savannah," my mother cried, her hands pressing against the glass. "Thank God. You have to help us. The venue is threatening to sue for breach of contract. They want $50,000 in damages. And Evan left Taylor. He broke up with me via text," Taylor shrieked, her voice cracking. "He said I'm a fraud. He said our whole family is a lie. You did this. You ruined my life because you're jealous." My father slammed his hand on the turnstile. "Open this gate, Savannah. We are going upstairs. We are going to write a check to the venue, and you are going to call Evan and tell him this was all a misunderstanding. You owe us that much after the stunt you pulled last night." I looked at them, really looked at them. They were small, they were messy, they were desperate. The anger I expected to feel wasn't there. Instead, I felt the cold, hard clarity of a building inspector condemning a structure. "I don't owe you anything," I said. My voice was calm, carrying easily through the quiet lobby, "and I'm not writing any checks." "How can you be so cruel?" my mother wailed. "We're your family." "No," I said. "I was your ATM. I was your insurance policy. I was the employee you didn't pay." I pulled a folded document from my hoodie pocket and slid it through the gap in the glass. "What is this?" my father snapped. "It's a cease and desist order," I explained. "And attached is a demand letter for the $54,000 I sent for medical expenses that never existed. You have 30 days to repay the fraud, or I file criminal charges for theft by deception against all 3 of you." Taylor went white. My mother gasped, clutching her chest for real this time. My father stared at me, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. "You wouldn't," he whispered. "You wouldn't put your own sister in jail." "I am the architect of my own life now," I said, meeting his gaze. "I decide what I build and what I bulldoze. You said I didn't fit the aesthetic, Dad. You were right. I'm structural. You're just decoration. And decoration is the first thing to go when the budget gets cut." I turned around. Behind me, I heard my father shouting, my mother sobbing, Taylor screaming my name. I didn't stop. I walked back to the elevator, pressed the button for the 34th floor, and watched the doors slide shut, sealing them out of my world forever. 3 months later, I stood on the balcony of my new office building, the wind whipping off Puget Sound. It was quiet. My phone didn't buzz with demands. My email didn't ping with guilt trips. The silence wasn't lonely. It was spacious. It was the kind of silence you find in a cathedral or a library, a space designed for thought, not noise. The aftermath had been swift and total. Evan had left Taylor the day after the lobby confrontation. He had sent me a brief, professional email apologizing for his part in the misunderstanding and resigning from the firm to pursue opportunities elsewhere. I accepted his resignation without comment. He was collateral damage, a beam that buckled under the weight of the truth. My parents were currently in mediation with the venue to settle the debt, selling their luxury SUV to cover the down payment. The foreclosure notice on their lakeside house had been posted last week. They were downsizing to a condo in Renton. It was a perfectly fine life, but it wasn't the image they craved. They had lost the facade, and without it, they looked exactly like what they were. Small, bitter people who had spent a fortune trying to buy admiration they hadn't earned. Taylor had gone quiet on social media. Her lifestyle brand had collapsed once the funding dried up. The last I heard from Aunt Sarah, she was working as a receptionist at a dental clinic, actually earning her own money for the first time in her life. I took a sip of my tea. The city stretched out below me, a testament to what happens when you build things correctly. Skyscrapers don't apologize for taking up space. Bridges don't ask permission to connect 2 points. They just exist, strong and undeniable. I realized then that I had spent 29 years trying to build a castle on quicksand. I had poured all my resources, my money, my love, my energy into a foundation that was designed to swallow me whole. And when I finally stopped, when I finally walked away, the quicksand didn't disappear. It just stopped dragging me down. I turned back to my office. On my desk lay the blueprints for the waterfront project. It was going to be magnificent, a public space designed for connection, for resilience, for the future. I picked up my pen. I was the architect of my own life now. I decided where the walls went. I decided who got a key. And for the first time, the structure was sound. I looked at my phone one last time. 0 missed calls, 0 unread messages. It was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. I put it down and went back to work. There was so much left to build. Have you ever been the one holding up the roof while everyone else complained about the view? Share your story in the comments.